Today's video is all about growing lettuce from start to finish. And I'm going to answer some questions like, how do you know when to harvest your lettuce? Slow it down from bolting? What do I do to help it grow in warmer weather? What do I do to help it grow in cooler weather? That sort of thing. Let's start out with what lettuce likes. It likes temperatures between 60 and 75 degrees. In fact, if it's 80 and above, it won't even germinate. And when it's between 70 and 80, it's going to have a tendency to want to bolt. That's not that warm for most places in the summertime. So naturally, the best time to plant it is in the spring and in the fall. Today, I'm going to plant some Lola Rosa Darky lettuce. Never heard of it before this year, and certainly have never planted it before. It takes a long time to reach maturity, 70 to 79 days. Now this seed packet does tell me that it is a slow to bolt lettuce, which is true for many leaf lettuces. When I planted earlier in the spring, I ended up with some empty spots. So I'm going to seed some of this lettuce in here. It's important to read the back of your seed packet because some varieties actually need to have light to germinate. This one doesn't say that, so I'm gonna cover it with a thin layer of soil. I'm also gonna lay down a little bit of rabbit manure. I already did it when I planted the first amount, but it doesn't hurt. Lettuces love nitrogen. I do sow all of my leafy greens pretty thickly. They're not spaced like the packet tells me to space them. And as you see the ones here, they're very close together, but that's because I harvest continually from them all season from the outer leaves, so they can afford to be that close together. And then I'm just going to sprinkle soil on top, and then I'll just put the soaker hose right up next to the row here, and I'll turn this on and it will saturate it and get it nice and wet. And I'm going to want to make sure this stays damp until it germinates. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little piece of cardboard here, and then every day I just come up and I'll peek under to see if there's any germination. Once I see that, that comes off. But this will help keep it moist. I always like to amend my soil with some nice aged compost or like that rabbit manure, and that along with a little bit of weed tea or compost tea through the season will grow beautiful green lettuces. I will leave a link above to how to make the weed tea. It's super easy and you literally just use the weeds from your garden and water. 2 ingredients. I've put down soaker hoses along my rows because lettuce wants to have consistent water. Mine gets about an inch a week. Yours might get more if you live in a hotter climate. They have shallow roots, so you just want to check underneath about the first inch. So here I'm going to water these guys because it's not that far down and it looks pretty dry. Although right here it's nice and wet. So they're not horribly dry, but dry enough that I'm going to give them a little drink. And if slugs are not a huge pest for you and you can mulch because that will also keep the water from evaporating and it'll keep your lettuces happier. I know when you're brand new to gardening or you're planting a brand new plant that you've never grown before, it can be hard to determine what is the plant you planted and what is the weed. Take a look at some freshly germinated lettuce. When lettuce first comes up, there's a lot of weeds that look just like it. They look just like this. You have to wait until it gets its third leaf. That's very helpful. So this one has its third leaf. It has a little bit of a red speckle to it. Okay, here's another lettuce and it's just all green. So it looks like when it's just first germinating. Here's a romaine variety. And they just look like a lot of other little weeds that come up. That's why I like to interplant radish in the row. If you look down the row, you can see the radishes even though you can't see the other plants that are coming up. So it gives me a good visual of where the actual plants are. Now, a constant question I see on one of the gardening forums that I like to go to is, when do I know when my lettuce is ready to harvest? Anytime you want, really, anytime you want. Let me show you. These little tiny plants I would not harvest from, but they're little buddies next door. If you see my hand, they're not very large. I've already been picking off of these plants. I want to keep the middle leaves so that they can keep growing, but these outer leaves, I can just cut around the edges all season long. and the plant will continue to grow and give me lettuce. And I feel like the more I keep it picked, the better it actually does. You can also wait till it gets like the size of the lettuces in the grocery store and cut it then, but you get a lot more food for your seed when you cut and let it grow again. Only June, and I don't have any lettuce bolting at the moment. However, I will show you a picture of what it looks like. This is the head that we got from the grocery store that we've been picking off. I haven't picked off of it recently, and see how it's getting smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller at the top? This looks like it's about ready to go to bolt, so I'm probably just gonna cut this off. I think it gets too warm in the bag. The roots don't keep nice and cool, and we also have some aphids through here, and I'm seeing ants in here, so it was fun while it lasted, but let me see if it's, let me see. It still tastes great, so that's good. But for these larger ones, even this is a butter crunch sort of lettuce, I just pick off the outer edges. See, and let it continue to grow. And we have eaten off of this multiple times. Still has a lot of lettuce. I'll leave a link to the replanting of the grocery store lettuce if you want to look at that. It's a really fun activity to do. And honestly, I think it was well worth the money spent. Instead of getting one head of lettuce, we've gotten probably 4. If you want to save seed, you're gonna go ahead and let some lettuce bolt so that you can save the seed from it. So lettuce is mostly self-pollinating, just like tomatoes. A self-pollinating plant, it has both the male and the female plant. So it does not require a pollinator to cross it between itself and another flower. So the chance of cross-pollinating is pretty low, but if you want to make sure you get a, true lettuce seed, you might want to only let one variety at a time go to seed and collect just those seeds, because then it's just pollinating amongst itself. There's no chance of it cross-pollinating with another variety. Then another pretty safe way is to have like 25 feet between the varieties, and then the chances of it crossing are pretty slim. Bok choy, and my bok choy are already starting to bolt. This one is not bolting. It's in a lovely mess of weeds, but this is what it looks like. It's going to start bolting. You can see down there. See how it's all compact? Lettuce look the same thing before they bolt. And then see this bok choy, how it starts to shoot up really tall? Lettuce does the same thing, and then it will form a seed stalk at the top. Harvesting in the morning before the sun even hits your plants is going to be the prime time to get the sweetest, tenderest lettuce you can get. As the sun comes up, it starts to lose some of the moisture that it's retained overnight, and so it loses some of that sweetness and crispness. Saving lettuce seed is ideal because it's super easy to do. Lettuce bolts so readily, and that seed will last a good 5 years if you store it properly in a cool, dry place. I like to pick the 1 or 2 that I find healthiest and hardiest and put a little marker by it so that I know these are the 2 plants that I'm gonna let go to seed and save the seed from them. This is my sky. It's not bright and sunny, but if it is bright and sunny where you live, there are ways to have lettuce last longer in the summer. Choose a bolt-resistant variety. Usually those are going to be your leaf lettuces and your butterheads. If you're in the high 70s or higher, I would start my seeds indoors where the climate is controlled and then transplant them out later. Lettuce seeds do not like to germinate at high temperatures, and then plant them under another plant that you have growing where it will be shaded, or plant them somewhere and use shade cloth. Make sure that they are kept constantly watered but not wet. That cool water will help cool the soil, and the soil heating up is actually what causes the plant to bolt more than the air temperature. So mulch, mulch, mulch. And if it's that time of year when you're planting and the soil is a little on the cool side, do not mulch. Keep the soil bare. That will help warm up the ground, help your lettuce roots to be happy and warm and grow better for you. You can also use hoop houses like I'm in right now, covers, greenhouses, cold frames, you get the idea. I keep these guys on hand for all kinds of stuff. We plant in them, and we also put them over plants in the spring and fall to help warm them up. I also use them sometimes if the chickens are roaming around, put a rock on top to help keep the chickens from scratching up the plant. Something that will help warm up the air, which then warms up the soil. Use what you have. And the most cold tolerant plants are often your romaines and your butterheads. But Google your varieties and look in your plant catalogs and they will give you the best information on what plants to grow for your climate. A hard frost will kill off lettuce. Have you ever put lettuce in your freezer? It just gets all slimy and nasty. Well, same thing outside. But if you have something protect those leaves like that, it will extend the season a little longer. Well, that's all I've got for today. So until next time, see ya.